This week on C Plus News Time, Netflix renews 2 shows amid cancellations, the Daddy's Home sequel trailer made me laugh, and Sony is sanitizing some of its motion picture shows. Families that want to watch raunchy movies together can finally do so without all the dick jokes and bad language. Sony wants to widen its audience with cleaner cuts of films, but the Directors Guild of America thinks that's a bunch of baloney. Sorry for the cursing, but this really peeves my pajamas. This plan of Sony's will not only neuter movies, but also destroy the artistic ambition of those who created them. Ooh, I'm so gosh darn flippin' peeved. It's time for me to go to see my therapist and for you to learn something new on this. C Plus News Time. I have never cursed so much during a news time. Please forgive me.
It's C Plus News Time. Delivering to you the news you didn't know about, the news you didn't care about, and the news you didn't know you cared about. With host, Chad White. Now, here's that host, Chad White.
I'd show my dick on Game of Thrones. Hell, I'd show my dick on Dog with a Blog. Welcome back to C Plus News Time. I'm your host, Chad White, and this is the comedy news that you didn't know about for the week of June 12th, 2017. So dumb. First up, as they cancel a few of their costly shows, Netflix renews 2 others. Both Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and Bill Nye Saves the World have been granted seasons 4 and 2 respectively. This comes a week after the streamer canceled The Get Down and Sense8. It was also brought to light last week that director Judd Apatow was going to film a stand-up special for the service at this year's Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal. No word on release, but we can assume it's this year. Probably, maybe. Next up, I don't usually report on trailers, but I needed a third story, and this was the only thing I could find. Daddy's Home, the 2015 Christmas flick starring Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg as 2 idiots trying to impress their kids, is getting a sequel. Joining the fun are Mel Gibson and John Lithgow as the 2 leads who are now good co-parent friends, dads. I reviewed the first movie and admittedly was not a fan, but I'll be damned if this trailer didn't make me laugh. I guess I'm a sucker for cheap jokes about 2 guys who aren't married playing house together. All told, this movie should do just as well as the first, especially since John Cena joined the cast in a role that had half a second of screen time in the ending of the first. Daddy's Home will hit theaters this November. And finally, the movie studio Sony, you may remember from that hack all those years ago, is toying with the idea of releasing clean versions of its dirty movies. You know, the ones they show on television with all the shits and fucks replaced with sugar and flip-flop. It's context sensitive. Now, naturally, the mulling over has created a lot of negative press, particularly from movie makers who have previously worked with Sony. Judd Apatow, Adam McKay, and Seth Rogen are among the angriest of peoples leading the disgust. So why is Sony considering this type of action? They wanted to reach to a wider audience. Clean version, as it's been dubbed, will make broadcast versions of movies available for purchase when the disc and digital regular versions release. Now, there are 24 films slated for the initiative's first rollout. One of them is bound to be your favorite. Movies like Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, and Big Daddy are part of the first wave. Just days after the revelation of the project, the Directors Guild of America spoke out against it. A guild representative told The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "Directors have the right to edit their feature films for every non-theatrical platform, plain and simple. Taking a director's edit for one platform and then releasing it on another without giving the director the opportunity to edit violates our agreement. As creators of their films, directors often dedicate years of hard work to realize their full vision, and they rightfully have a vested interest in protecting the work. We are committed to vigorously defending against the unauthorized alteration of films." To put it bluntly, they're not having it. Sony did say it contacted these directors whose films are on the first list. It turns out that might be a fib, as Adam McKay has 2 whole films on there and he's not too pleased. A rep for McKay said that he would not agree to this. Neither would I, as a matter of fact. It doesn't make sense for a family version of a movie to make its way to sale. The idea, Sony insists, is for families to sit down together to watch movies they probably wouldn't have. But a regular parent would wouldn't care if their child saw the PG-13 rated version of Talladega Nights. There aren't any incredibly dirty jokes, that is if you watch the rated version, and the language is, to put it bluntly, pretty mild. Sony isn't even offering any reasoning beyond the family aspect. On June 14th, 7 days after the clean version was announced, Sony said it won't release the sanitized movies if the directors disapproved. Now that's a big 180 they took. The studio is now trying to cover its tracks by getting in touch with the 18 directors it previously said it's spoken to. Sony Home Entertainment President Manjit Singh told The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "Our directors are of paramount importance to us, and we want to respect those relationships to the utmost. We believed that we had obtained approvals from the filmmakers involved for use of their previously supervised television versions as a value-added extra on sales of the full version." The DGA countered that argument by saying the studio may be violating their contracts, but giving Sony an out if they contact the directors. Big if. While, quote, "While we're pleased that Sony is acknowledging the mistakes in this area, the DGA has notified Sony that it expects the immediate removal of all clean versions of the affected films from availability until Sony secures permission from each and every director and provides them with an opportunity to edit a version for release in new media, consistent with the DGA agreements and the director's individual contracts. These are hard-fought for rights that protect the director's work and vision and are at the very heart of our craft and a thriving film industry. As we have throughout our history, we are committed to fighting the unauthorized editing of films." Sony's one argument is all well and good, but adding these clean versions to the pantheon of movies could have serious repercussions for movie fans. The artistic integrity of the business will be shot as curse words are cut down to meaningless fodder, action scenes are whittled down to polite slaps, and boobs are covered with tank tops. It's madness, I tell you. Imagine if Michelangelo's David had his penis covered. Gee, it must be cold in the Galleria dell'Accademia. What would happen if every Kendrick Lamar lyric was replaced with Jehovah's Witness gospel? Concerts would be less lit. What if the game Journey was more of a quick jaunt than a poignant journey with an unnamed companion? Video games are art no matter how many times that debate is started. And no matter what happens, Sony needs to keep these things in mind first. These directors spent months working to see their visions come into fruition. Visions that shouldn't be squandered because Sony wants twins Jimmy and Janie, aged 5, to watch Step Brothers and not get the joke of Farrell rubbing his balls on John C. Reilly's drum set. And that's all the news I have for you for this week on C Plus News Time. Why don't you subscribe and check out one of our other videos? Of course, you can always head to the website cpluscomedy.com, where we've got the latest everything you ever want to do in the entire world. You can also follow us on Twitter at cpluscomedy. Follow me on Twitter at ChadBlackWhite. Like us on Facebook and head to the webpage youtube.com/cpluscomedy for more shows that are like this, except way less funny, or more funny, depends on who you are.